good. Back on the old bench with the 272 crankcase. This is for Ralph, the doc. One of the docs, but Ralph sent me this, and we took it apart on a previous video. And let's take it apart further and put it back together and get this back to where it should be. Yeah, one thing we got to do, we got to get the bearings out. That's pretty easy. So we're going to work on that. And what I'm going to do also is, for those people that haven't done this before, this is a lot more fun to do it live. So please join live if you can. These videos are not super exciting to watch later. The shameless plug is mattschainsawparts.com. If anybody wants 181 top covers, and obviously stay tuned for more stuff, more developments on that. I have been very busy and have not been involved with that too much, but I am shipping stuff. We've got the website, it's going. All is well there. William Prophet, welcome. Part of the fun of live is that we get to enjoy time together, and if anybody has any questions, they can always hit me up. And I can give you bad advice about just about anything. Right, William? So we've got these cleaned and degreased. They're pretty good. But the bearings, I don't trust at this point, because we've taken it apart and put it back together, and taken it apart, put it back together. There's too many lateral forces on the bearings. It worries me. Yeah, so make sure this says 5 people here. See, on this other phone, it doesn't show me necessarily how many people here. I don't know. Something's up, but it doesn't matter. We got to get the bearings out. We can do this hot. We can do this cold. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. I think I'll just tap them out hot this go around. So we're going to get the bearings out, new bearings in, and set this whole thing together, and we'll show you how to do that. And some of this is intuitive, and some of it's not. Ranch Hand, welcome. Some of it's not intuitive because of, well, the 272 is a little different than the 266 in that some of the older 266 have a flywheel side seal holder. This does not. So there's actually a positive stop here for the bearing when you put the bearing in, but there is not necessarily a positive stop for the bearing on this side. On 266, there's not a positive stop. You actually have to use the seal holder for the stop. On the PTO side, you're going to see we're going to use the oiler for the positive stop for the bearing. So as you're inserting the bearing, it's got something to stop against. We'll go over it. So if there's any questions or comments, just throw them out, guys. Yeah, no problems there. Hey, Harry. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I've been really, really busy. I've just been, all my days off, I'm working outside, and I just don't, get to this that much. So, apologize. These are the bearings that are actually OEM, but because this has been apart so many times, we're just going to take these out. And you can check this with a heat gun. Depends on where you want it. Somewhere around 300 is generally where I start having a question mark. Where's my heat gun back together? So like 150, 170, not hot enough. We'll get it there. just tap it out. And you can use a number of things to tap on this. Yeah, let's use the side. Perfect. Done. There we go. So obviously now that bearing is junk. It's hot. I'm going to put that down there. Put this away for a second. Socket fit in here. Nope, won't. That'll fit. Okay. So, same deal. Now on this one, you might just want to, once the bearing comes out, just put the new bearing in once it's hot. Because, again, there's a positive stop here. Nice even heat. I've shown how to do this hot. I've shown how to do this cold. Whatever you guys want to do. We may pull the other bearing in cold, which is fine too. $247, $231, $202, $285. Almost there. Sometimes if you get it hot enough, they'll just fall out. So now, they're all clean, pretty clean. Getting Q-tips. I see a teeny tiny burr on here. Get rid of that. Don't want burrs. That's fine. All right, now this is still hot, but it's not hot enough to insert that other bearing. So I got to get it hot again. 160. It's cooled down quite a bit. Hey, Chad. Do it. Perfect. Now the bearing's in. So these are Natchies. These are actually new old stock Natchies, but they're work just fine. Even if you get the sealed ones, still doesn't matter. Just pop the seals out. That way they're open. Now, if you're really ambitious, you just drop in the crank, but we're not going to do that. Sometimes that works and sometimes that don't. Okay, put this off to the side here, anywhere. Let it cool down. Okay. Next. Still kind of warm on this, so we'll take this time while these cool down to check this out here. So let's take apart the oiler. Have I taken, I must have taken these apart before, but I don't. Ah, there's a pin here. I want to see if I can get this apart. There's an E-clip here. These things, of course, tend to go flying. Let's pull that off. E-clip, washer, spring. Looks like a 4-position keeper of some kind. I really wish I remembered how to get these apart, because I really prefer to take these things apart. You just tap it. Yeah. That taps out. And then this white piece goes as a keeper, that's all. William, do you know how to take these apart? Because there's a pin right here, but I don't see how to. There's a set screw. Something slightly smaller than. It's a set screw. I wonder. Right. It's amazing how these tiny little screws are so incredibly powerful. It's not. I have this one. Although I need a pair of pliers to move that. There's a set screw in the worm gear. Yeah, and that's what I'm going after right now. Got it. Vice grips and like a jeweler's flat blade. There we go. Tiny. That is tiny. Okay. So now this should just come off. If I lose that set screw, I'm in trouble. If I lose any of these pieces, I'm in trouble. Yeah, how does that help me now? I don't see. Yeah. Well, okay, so I removed the set screw, but if I pulled down, which is what I would anticipate. Does it come apart? It's got to come apart, right? I just don't remember doing a 272 oiler. 268 oiler, whatever this is. I'm going to call it. I wonder if I can give this a tap this way. Just want to give it a tap this way. That'll loosen it. Maybe not. I gotta imagine that the set screw holding that shaft would just come out, would fall out theoretically. Because I can't. The shaft should push through the gear. There, I just had to work it out, that's all. Yeah, so that shaft goes that way. I'll show you guys the pieces in a second when I get it apart. Now I might be able to grab it on the end here. There we go. Why'd they make it so long? Oh, I see. The worm is just set on there. Oh, I see here. Okay. So there's the shaft. That comes out. The worm. Then the spring. And then probably two washers here. And copper washer away. Haha. Now I can clean this. I got it, William. We're good. It's just that the shaft is tight. You know, nobody oils it when they put it together. Good. Just need to give that a good clean. I can just go back together. Let's get all these parts clean. Copper washer, silver washer, spring. Still can see four numbers around the adjuster. Nice. Send it to me. I'd like one of those. Yeah, just to, have it sitting around if nothing else. All right. Now the worm here is reasonably cleaned. I'm just going to let it sit there for a second. Make sure this shaft is 2 buffers, right? Now we do a little bit of grease here on the shaft. Not much, just a touch. Put this back this way. There. That goes back in. Good. Line up this little set screw. Good. And I'm not going to put Loctite on here or anything. Just hand tight. That's it. Nice. Okay. The adjuster here. Weight capture type piece. So this goes basically so it hits the bumps is what it's doing. Got it. Spring. Washer. And then E-clip. And then things tend to fly into the next dimension, so nice. Should have a little bit of play there. Good. Don't want to bugger this first go around. William, what do you set this on? 3, 4? Just which is all the way up? 4? Make sure that little. Don't worry, I'm getting there. The output. Yeah, I got it. Good deal, nothing. Picked up a Cherry 272. Nice. Beautiful. Cobus, I do have a question. So, and this is the same question I ask just about everybody when they say, hey, I picked up this sweet saw. It doesn't matter how good of a 4. Yeah, okay. It doesn't matter how good of a cosmetic condition that thing's in. It's old, unless it's one of them new old stock ones from overseas. It's old, and the seals are old. So if you're gonna run it, make sure you tear that thing down. Ah, that's smooth. Yeah, this is traveling, so we're good. Very, very good. Okay. Now I gotta get rid of some of this stuff. We don't need all this stuff here. So now we want to position this bearing in this particular chassis. The easy thing here to do is take this, obviously make sure it's clean. Make sure it sits down all the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my oiler bolts. I happen to be using steel fasteners here, but don't worry about that. Ignore that. What we're going to do is we're going to pull this bearing in cold against the oiler. Yeah, so Cobus, if you have a 272, that's awesome, but I would highly suggest. Wait a minute. That bolt is wrecked. That's not good. Hang on. I'd highly suggest doing a rebuild on that thing as soon as possible. Even though to your estimation it looks nice, it still is old. There, better. Make sure it's airtight. Pull it together. Some earlier 66 tools. Awesome. Doesn't it make you giggle when you actually use the tools? And we're gonna do that today too. But need a real. Yep, the 288 is. Oh, I mean, I might get to a 288 today. Also, I don't know. Yeah, I might just heat this up and toss her in. I really want to do that. All right, we'll do this cold. I'll show you guys cold. So, I'll use a little bit of anti-seize around here. Bearings does tend to slip in a little smoother when you do that. Nachi 6202s. Nice fresh new bearing. Now, yeah, what I usually do is make sure it's tapped. So at least it started. So it started. You don't hit it on the inner race. You got to do it just on the outer race. Now I need my pullers. So 1/2 inch threaded rod. All this is 1/2 inch threaded rod, nuts, and a good assortment of washers, especially the big fender washers. Really helps. Here you can actually use a socket on this. Whatever you want to do, you can use your ratchet wrench, which is my favorite. It should go smooth. If you feel it binding, no good. It means something's off somewhere. That's it. Done. Don't even need to heat it up or nothing. As long as it goes in smooth, it ain't binding, you're good. If it's binding, take this off, reset. Silly fender washer. So yeah, if it's binding, just reset, retap it so it's actually straight. That's all. And only tap on the outer race, not the inner race. Okay. Again, this is just 1/2 inch threaded rod with some nuts and washers. That's it. That's all that is. Pulled in tons of bearings with that. Okay. Still warm. Amazing. Gonna toss that. Don't need that anymore. Technically speaking, you're supposed to give that stuff back to the customer because they're not mine, but I don't think Ralph's going to want those. Okay. Now we have the bearing in position. I need to remove the oiler anyway because we don't have our O-rings and whatnot in there and seals and all that stuff. So I got to remove the O-ring oiler anyway. So let's just remove that. Now we're going to focus on getting this case together. Yeah, so this is something I want to mention and definitely emphasize. And anybody getting a used saw, and I just saw this the other day. Somebody posted a 660 on OPE forum. Like, hey, this is $700 or whatever it was. This is a good deal, you know? Question mark. You know, and that saw looked like it had been ridden hard and put away wet. And you're just like, I don't know. $700, I don't know. I've had saws that were $50 that were too much. So, you know, you got to know what you're looking at, and you got to ask the questions, i.e., When was the last rebuild? That's an important question to ask. So I've got this is all degreased and clean, so I don't got to worry about it too much. What I'm going to do is basically now use my set of crank tools here. If anybody's interested in the crank tools, they can always email me, and I'll put my email in here, unless one of the moderators is here. Harry, take care. Yeah, we'll see you soon, man. This is just my set of crank tools, and all it is a sleeve, a sleeve, a very specific piece of threaded rod that actually threads onto the crank. And you get the set. It's kind of universal, does a lot of the saws that you're going to do. And then you put in your threaded rod. It's this carriage bolt. All this does is, think of this as a handle. That's all this is. All the way in. Back it off a touch. And then we need a washer here. And a nut. And all you're going to do with this is you're pulling the crank through the bearing. That's all you're going to do. Okay. Get that lined up. If you want, you can put a touch of oil. On the crank. Well, not a lot, because you don't want oil on the sealing surface of the crankcase. So the reason we're doing this like this is because now when you're doing this, you're not putting any lateral forces on the bearing. So the bearing is completely safe here, and you're doing it at room temperature. I like to pull the PTO side in first. That's it. Okay, and we back it off. Handle. Done. Now there's nothing really wrong with leaving this, actually, for the moment. We can certainly do that. Thanks to Craig Timmons for that idea. So yeah, you've got now this is in there, and hopefully not binding. Good. So now we have this side ready to go. And now you can start gooping things up. Again, part of this is procedural. It's kind of the order that I do things in. Blue Loctite. So I'm not going to Loctite the anterior case bolts, the long ones for the dog, because I'm not putting the dog on. Ralph's going to have to take this apart again. Or at least take the two front ones out to put the dog on. So no blue Loctite there. But I will blue Loctite the rest of them. And what I do is go around. Again, you made sure that this is relatively clean and degreased. You don't necessarily need the goop. You're welcome to use it if you want. If you have a brand new crankcase, the odds of you needing this is really low, but still. If you're trying to make things kind of bulletproof, then this is, I think, an important step. Up by here, the edge is very important. Okay. So now we're going to go around here, do this too. So now I've done the flywheel side first. I want to let it tack for a minute. Don't slather it on. Just go easy. Get the crank out of your way if you need it out of your way. This is 3 bonds 1184 that I'm using. The key to these sealants that you use is this has to be gas and oil resistant. Like RTV gray doesn't work because it's not gas and oil resistant. You can use Yamabond, Honda Bond, Moto Seal. You can use Durco. A lot of guys use Durco. That's steel territory there. But and Loctite 518 does work as well, which is anaerobic sealer, but I would not recommend running it very quickly after that. All right, Cobus, the 272 would call it tall cylinder shape air filter. Have you seen tall cylinder shape air filter? The filter has its own cover. It's kind of squarish. The filter cover is black and squarish. Yeah, that's the original 272 non-HD filter. The new or the more desirable 272 filters are the HD style, which it looks more like a 288 flocked filter or a 395 flocked filter. Megafits it. Well. Yeah, you catch a live. Fantastic. Welcome. So I've got all kinds of other little parts here. I'll go over those in a minute. But importantly, we've got OEM, this is new old stock OEM gasket fit. Shipping the rest of this. And HL Supply was out of stock, unfortunately, so I had to pick this up off eBay. Usually I get HL Supply. If anybody's interested in that sort of stuff, please check out any of my bolt for bolt videos, my old school bolt for bolt videos. They have my affiliate link in the description. If you're going to buy from HL Supply, please use my affiliate link because I get commission. And that is helpful to me. Ta-da! Okay. It's a circle and very tall. Okay, yeah, email me a pic. Thank you. Okay, again, if you'd like, you can put a little bit of just a tad of oil here. Make it a little easier to pull together. Okay. So make sure you've got kind of everything down, like your studs here. Nice to make sure they're good before you do this, but nothing's in the way. Biggest key with this is going to be lining up the positioning pins. Okay, same deal. Need a rod here. This is actually M8 by 1.0. Right hand. This is left hand thread. M10 by 1. M8 by this is M8 by 1.0. Again. right hand thread. Okay, you can actually use a small sleeve here. This case, so large sleeve, large bearings, small sleeve, small bearings. But you can use the large sleeve on this side if you have a large bearing. Anyway, if you go with 6203s, the bigger bearings, bigger saws, and you use the small sleeve, you're going to mushroom the sleeve. Don't do that. Okay. So, rod, sleeve, handle. All the way down, back it off half a turn or so. And then nut and washer. And again, what you're actually doing is either, depending on your perspective, either pushing the bearing onto the crank or pulling the crank through the bearing. I prefer to think of it as pulling the crank through the bearing. And just tighten it down. And you can see this whole thing coming together just fine. You can make sure that you get your positioning pins good. Yep. And one of the biggest beauties of this system is if I take a phone call right now, it's no problem. I'm halfway through. Who cares? I'm going to take a phone call. Come back. It'll be fine. It's going to be fine. It's all done at room temperature. There's no particular hurry. Now, if you want to help guide things, you can also put, put your bolts in, or start putting your bolts in. Oh, these are the wrong. I put M4 out. That's kind of silly of me. M5 washers. Do I have M5 washers? Yeah, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go do something. Okay, go do it. So one of the things about these anterior bolts is I like to put some washers on here because I want to sort of simulate the thickness of the dog so I don't bottom out the screw. Max Chainsaws. How much you sell that toolkit for? It's a good question. So what I call my main kit, which does about, I would say 90% of the relevant chainsaws, is $180 shipped. And I'll show you exactly what you get for that kind of money. Roughly speaking, it's like $30 a rod and $30 a sleeve. Generally, I put together a kit for you, and I call it a main kit, and it's very effective for about 90% of the stuff guys are rebuilding. 660s, 372s, everything from it'll do a 3120, it'll do a 288. So I'm going to keep going here. You go down until it stops. That's it. Because you don't want to mushroom the aluminum. So you can certainly have, and you can always tighten something else down. I mean, it's just not a big deal. Like, so the whole thing is tight. No more rub. All right. So now you can put these in if you like. K screws. These are 35 millimeter, 55 millimeter anterior, and I think a 20 millimeter rear. Yeah, I would claim that my toolkit is pretty much one of the best values in chainsaws, period. Once you actually use it for the first time, you get it. Because it just takes all the guesswork out of stuff. There's no guesswork involved. And it's also, it's a time saver, too. I've had guys actually say that, like, oh, well, now it actually makes it feasible for a shop to do rebuilds. And it's like, oh, great. I love that sort of stuff. So you can get the screws in while these are still on, kind of holding everything together and making sure it's reasonably in alignment. You don't want to impact them on, that's not the idea. All hand tight, and then I'm just gonna remove. You want to make sure you get good squeeze out, all that stuff. So now we can just undo all these. Yeah, there's no more heating the bearing up and cooling the crank or whatever and getting it to drop in, and maybe it goes in and maybe it don't. You end up with just, pulling stuff off. You end up with, heat differential that you lose for whatever reason. Then you're putting in the press anyway, and have rebuild at least the steel. You don't have to trash an oil pump with this tool, right? Because you don't got to trash an oil pump. You're just undoing a nut. That's all that this is. Throw some of this stuff back in the truck. I don't need it anymore. Just all comes apart. Simple. Simple, simple, simple. I think what's going to happen, though, I think ultimately the cost of the tools is going to go up very materials cost is going up. So next time I order, I may see a price increase. Very possible. So yeah, these tools are actually not tapped; they're thread milled on a $180,000 Mazak CNC. So when I do color code them, I don't have the key out yet, but I do color code them. Eventually, when I do put that key on the website, then you'll be able to see it. Hey, Bob. No more binding. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me get some Q-tips. I'll be right back. Q-tips. Tend to be handy. So, just to keep things simple, just looking at this, it's going to be unlikely that this crank seal is deep enough to run into anything. But on this, I'll just put it down to the lip. Make sure that the spring is in there. Now this is nice and tapered, so you don't got to worry about the spring popping out. On the other side, let's see, do you? Yeah, so I have a install tool we'll use, but I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, don't need this anymore. So actually I might need that, darn it. Loctite, this is Loctite 518, anaerobic sealer, don't need much. Just put a touch on the seal. Put that on there just like that. Again, double check that the spring is in there just fine, which it is. If you put it down, you're like, nah, let me check again. Be OCD about it. Be OCD about it, like me. Did that feel right? I don't know. Spring's still there. I'll be really annoying about it. A little bit of grease on here, which I'm going to rub off later, by the way. You do not want grease. Perfect. You don't want grease on the taper, but made that mistake before. You can use a socket or anything to tap this on down. Nice and even, tippity tap. I'm just being insanely picky. That's perfect. Now you can also measure these with the depth mic and make sure that you're down kind of where you need to be. But on this one, just not that worried about it. It's down beyond the taper. Or beyond, it's down beyond the taper of the, you know what, let's tap it down, another ½ millimeter. If it's down beyond the taper for the flywheel, then you're probably fine. Huh, I had that tool. My machinist has it. Great. Because there is a specific tool actually intended for this. That's a little deeper. Like I said, you can bring out your depth gauge here and say, okay, you know, where are we at? 4.7, 2.0. If I can get this like within a tenth of a millimeter, I'm usually pretty satisfied all the way around. Again, there's something being too picky. We're good. That's fine. Okay. Now the more complex part. Sort of. Q-tip. The grease just on the crankshaft, not anywhere else here. Again, this is all fresh and new, so it makes things a little easier. Right, next thing's next. I got to get this seal into here. Same deal on this with the anaerobic. So, of interesting note, the seal, when you drive it into the oiler, it OEM has the seal sticking up about a millimeter. I don't see why. There's no point. So I drive it flush. If for whatever reason something's binding, you can always drive it further in. That's not a big deal. Okay. Now, fresh new O-ring. Go watch my O-ring substitution video, Husqvarna O-ring substitutions. You can look that up. That's not hard to find. This is actually a O-ring from, I believe it was a McMaster car. The part numbers and everything are in there, so you can see them. Same thing with the what's called a quad ring. You can buy like 100 of them then for $8 instead of $5 a piece. And they're the same thing, USA made. Nice. Sorry, guys. Hey, Alpo. Slightly overset the seal. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, William. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they actually make a specific seal install tool for this. So it's slightly set just beyond the end of the taper in the casting. So that should be fine. Okay, O-ring here, O-ring there, and I happen to have a brand new oil line. Now, this is actually a highway pickup, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to goop these up because they're brand new OEM. You don't need goop on brand new OEM. What I will goop up is the O-ring here on the outside of the bearing. This is something you do not want to have pucker. And this is anaerobic sealer intentionally because I do not want to get this in the bearing. So now you've got a lip right here on the crank. You need to contend with that. The easy thing to do is either use a piece of Coke can or have the Husky seal install tool. I'll actually give you the part number for this in a minute. So this you can just slide right in there. A little bit of blue Loctite. So we're Loctited up. O-ring, O-ring, new dip tube. That goes down like that. Again, yes, I'm using steel fasteners, so shoot me. Just tighten them down evenly. Calibrated arm. Good. Seal installer comes out. That's that. Ta-da! Tried the Coke can. Yeah, well, the Coke can is fiddly, but the simpler way to do it, there's two fitting sleeves that you guys need then. 502 50 5301, that's the smaller one for 6202 bearings. 502 50 5201 is for 6203 bearings. They're really inexpensive. Get them from HL Supply. Hey, Will. So I think we actually have it here. That's tight. That's about all we need to do. Let's do one last tidy up thing here for the dock. My razor blades went flying off. There. You can go back and double check our tightness. That's that. Yeah, I'll put the 502 50 5301. 502 50 5301, and then the larger one is 502 50 5201. There. So that's that. Ship it. So I might go on later. I've got Oh, what do I got to do? I've got an unboxing here for 288. I want to get to with you guys. I really want to get a 288 built here, so I can get that started. Because I've got too much part. I got too many parts. It's just too much. Way too much in parts here for me to have this sitting around. I've got the Johnson Red that needs to go back together, but I'm cleaning all that stuff. Let's see here. I'm just looking at chat here. Okay, we got 11 people. Um, Anybody else have anything for me? I mean, questions, comments, anything else? What I do with 394? You know I'll do a 394 for you. It's just going to take some time. Not that you haven't taken some time off. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. All right. I think if I get a chance, if I get things organized enough, maybe I'll go on later. I don't know yet. It's kind of rainy outside, so I don't have much better to do right now. Need to kind of booger my brain out anyway. Um, yeah. Yeah, if anybody can take the time, all you got to do is click on the link for HL's Pro Parts, which is HL Supply. That's my affiliate link, and it tracks you. So if you buy anything from HL Supply, then I get credit for it, and that's hugely helpful. So, or you can contact me through my website, which is mattschainsawparts.com, or just email me directly, matty05@aol.com. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Okay. What else? Is that it, guys? That's all I got for you. I think. Yeah, like I said, if I'll be on, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling. So a nap sounds good right now. Rainy day. Might as well take advantage. So I'm out, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Okay. Later.